Street is not taxed. They pay zero. They pay zero on their corporate income tax. They pay zero on their quadrillions of turnover. So tax that. That's my tax. Now, however, let's look at it from a different point of view. Suppose you're one of the 30 or 40 million, or maybe 50 million, because it usually comes down to a group of about 50 million poverty-stricken Americans, right? They've been left out in the cold. You are not poor enough for Medicaid, because for Medicaid, you got to be practically destitute in many states. You are not old enough for Medicare. You are too old for S-chip, because you can get child health insurance, right? No matter how poor you are, you can get it for your kids. You're not a veteran, and you're not getting COBRA because you're not, coming out of a job that you lost. So here's the problem. There's a mass of people. Now, the result of this thing is Wall Street gets paid, but if you're in the middle, within 18 months, you're going to be able to get some kind of coverage. And I think that's a positive aspect. In other words, it's not all bad. Wall Street's going to get paid. Yeah. Look, if the opposition is Ron Paul on the one side and ad busters on the other, Wall Street will get their way because there's no real opposition. But even within that, in order to get it through the Congress, they had to put in this thing, no pre-existing conditions. That's going to be over. You're going to get some coverage.
Oh, I've read it. It's written by the insurance companies. I mean,
fine, but they had to make concessions to some kind of reality. So I think the big thing is remove the IMAC and MedPAC, remove the death panels, stop the rationing, and restore the 500
but rationing always comes with socialist health care. Webster, thank you so much. I know, the nightmare of England. Look, I've got people that work for me that live in England. It's a hellhole. But Webster, thank you. We'll talk to you more about it next week. We'll be right back. All right, it's the second hour of Global Transmission. I guess that'd be 1 o'clock Eastern, high noon Central, where I come to you from, Austin, Texas. Here's the deal. I want to give you a chance to tell me what you think about Obamacare, global care, banker care, and the Supreme Court ruling, John Roberts, the reports that he changed his votes 15 minutes before. That's got a bunch of news articles, people saying he looked like he was crying or he was on drugs. I mean, they were going to announce, and the word was that it was unconstitutional last week, but then they postponed it. I mean, and I said, ooh, that doesn't bode well. And it's because of the trillions that the banksters that own the big insurance companies are going to get. And that's what nobody in the right wing is going to tell you. God bless their little hearts. I mean, I agree with them on the Second Amendment, on abortion, but on all the other issues, they're just bamboozled by crony capitalists. The crony capitalists are the ones everywhere that fund the communist system. And they destroy your industry, shut everything down where you've got to be on the government dole. Because that becomes the economy. That becomes, the factories are at the prisons. And it's a trap. That's what this corrupt, sickening ruling class has done. They're putting a bunch of TSA people all over the place, pulling William Shatner's pants down. I mean, I just want to be left alone by these people. I want to just have some victories. But in a way, the fact that things are getting worse so much faster is a victory. I mean, I get the point of Joseph Curl in the Washington Times, is that worse is better. That's what the communists used to say. They wanted to undermine things so it would collapse so they could take over. Well, we're not glad the globalists are collapsing things, but yeah, worse is better. I guess it will wake people up. That's what Andrew Napolitano, Judge Napolitano, is saying. He's saying this will get libertarians behind Romney. I don't know anybody hardly that really supports Romney. Or they say, well, he's Obama light. Really? Is he Obama light? I mean, Holder's a crook and discredited. Obama's a crook and discredited. You really think Obama could stay in 4 years and get away with martial law, get away with new wars, get away with this? I don't think so, even if we tried a race war like they tried with Trayvon Martin. And again, I don't even sit here and theorize about politics, what would work better. I mean, I know everybody else does that. I just say justice be done, the heavens fall. People say, oh, well, that's not a very nuanced or complex way of thinking. Look, I'm engaged in a lot of complex thinking, all right, ladies and gentlemen? All I do is study literature and art and history and news and I know how little I do know. That's how much I know, which is a whole lot. But I'm telling you, the way we're going is the way every corrupt empire goes, and our death is being accelerated. Our rotting degeneration is moving very quickly, and it isn't pretty. And this is going to swallow up the ruling class as well. The crony capitalists and working with communists and socialists is going to end up destroying them. And they think they can have this balancing act and play the communists and the dependents and the welfare people off on what's left of the middle class. It isn't going to work. And let me tell you, then there's the zombification of society. People either get in the fast lane and drive 20 miles under the speed limit, I saw this today, with just enjoyment, that's like their power, or they drive recklessly. Some guy, I'm in the middle lane driving to work on 290, I'm going 70 miles an hour, speed limit. In the middle lane, car, 3 car lengths, 4 car lengths ahead of me. I don't even usually follow that close, but things were bunching. And here comes a guy in a Chevy work truck almost hitting me. And he goes around me and almost hits 2 other cars. And I'm just like, and you talk to people, they can't even take an order at a restaurant. People don't even talk anymore. They're dumber than a box of rocks. And it literally is like the zombie apocalypse. I mean, I'm telling you, we're in trouble, folks. Things are going to collapse. I mean, I'm sure of it. The question is, when? I'm going to give the number out. We're going to take your calls when we come back. All right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give the number out, and I'm going to take your phone calls. Because if I start getting into the news, I will never get to your calls. So we're going to take about 40 minutes of calls interspersed with a little bit of headlines, and then I'm going to news blitz the last 20 minutes of this hour. And then we've got the legendary whistleblower joining us, Frank Serpico, and we'll get his take on all the corruption in the world. He's the guy, of course, one of the most famous police officers in U.S. history who exposed that basically all the detectives were dealing drugs, running whores, everything else you can imagine. And many cities have just fallen to where the police are total mafias now. And the troops grow the opium in Afghanistan. No one wants to hear this. It's like, oh, don't talk bad about the troops. The troops themselves aren't bad. They're the ones complaining about it. But the bureaucrats and the bankers running things think we're so stupid. They run al-Qaeda in Libya. They're now putting al-Qaeda into Syria publicly, and it's not an outrage. And I know I talk about that every hour. I just can't get over it myself, how ridiculous it's all gotten. The federal government's building up for war with us. The drones are launching. This Obamacare thing is such a nightmare, so authoritarian, so unconstitutional. And then you get the socialists that think government can help people. Yeah, I mean, it saws off a leg and gives you a peg. That they're like, well, it is for the insurance companies. They did write it, Tarpley earlier. You're right, it is a payoff to them, and it is a tax to them, but some people that aren't covered will be covered now. Yeah, when they bankrupt the whole system and it allows them to control the care. I mean, have you seen the banksters have lobbied for this in Europe and everywhere else, and it destroys the healthcare system? It wrecks everything, and you'll never be happy until you wreck everything. All right, I'm ranting. And then everybody from Sarah Palin to Rush Limbaugh to Rick Perry is freaking out over John G. Roberts, the Bush appointee, George W. Bush appointee. The word is changing his vote and coming out red-eyed and everything. And did he have a seizure? Did they threaten him? Gee, you think people get threatened when trillions of dollars are on the table? I mean, look. Again, I'm not even a Republican, but look at the Democratic appointees. I mean, they would win an ugly contest. And I don't usually go off how somebody looks because I'm not the prettiest person in the world. But let me tell you something. Their eyes, their mannerisms, Sotomayor, Elena Kagan. I mean, these are gibbering weirdos. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, what a freak who says the UN should make our laws. Go look it up. And that they should control our rulings. Okay, I'm already ranting. I'm going to give you the number. I want to get your take. If you can get in, medical doctors, nurses, whatever. Hey, you like this idea? You think this is a great idea? Or are there people out there that support it? I promise that I'm going to try to control myself. I can't guarantee it, but if you disagree, you can get in as well. We don't screen your calls. 800-259-9231, 800-259-9231. The phones are open. But the guy called in and he gave the NPR line of, this will be just like Social Security. It won't be bad like you say. And I'm like thinking of what a Ponzi scheme Social Security is. I'm thinking of what a scam it is, how the banksters set it up to make us dependent. And here he is. They just believe in this system. They like it. But see, the system's coming to an end, which was planned to bring in this even more horrible public world government run by mega banks that say on the news we're their slaves. You know, CNBC, yes, we're slaves of the bankers. They rule us, and we're slaves. Are we slaves? Yes. Yes, absolutely. What about you? Are we slaves of bankers? Yes, we're absolutely slaves. I mean, don't you get it? They want this. They want open borders. They want government-run health care. And by the way, I'm an expert on eugenics. I'm an expert. I've read, over the years, probably 50, 60 books written by these people, hundreds of their papers, their documents. Aaron's read over 100 books. I mean, we got a whole library written by these people. Their dream is to get control of healthcare so they can control it. The death panels, the rationing, it's all real. Or even if you've got money. Paul Watson's got money to go to a private doctor. He does one of the best jobs anybody working here, so he's paid the most. And let me tell you something. He's a contractor. He couldn't go get health care when he needed it. He had to go to the NHS, and they wouldn't help him. They wouldn't even do a test. He could hardly do his job for a month with a chest cold. I wasn't watching C-SPAN where they get up there and go, yes, they're waiting 1.5 years or 2 years for a surgery and they're dying. Yes, it's true. We need to do more. You know, killing people, killing old people, literally killing them. And now they tell you in Newsweek and Time how great it is. Paul Watson, not even 30 years old, been working for me 10 years. Couldn't go get a chest cold. They didn't even swab it. I've had chest colds before I couldn't get rid of. After about a week of it, I go to the clinic. I go to the hospital. I go to clinic here in town, one of my dad's friends owns. I go in there, doctor or nurse sticks a swab in there. They go, come back in 2 hours when we've sent it to the lab, and they find out what I've got so that I can then get the drug or the antibiotic specifically for that. They just, I'm now ranting. You go to the dirtbag National Health Service, and they didn't even swab Watson, who tried to get well for 2 weeks, and he goes in there, trying to get in for 2 weeks, and he gets in there, and they just go, here's a little pack with some aspirin and some stuff in it. You're going to be all right. And he's like, you're not going to check me? You're not? No. And then he starts going in saying, okay, I want the form where I can go see a private doctor. You have to get their permission. This is the stinking nanny state that socialist filth creates. And again, the well-meaning socialists, some of them are intelligent, they're smart like Tarpley, but they just don't understand. But the bankers understand how this works. They understand full well what they're doing. And there's this trust of the state. There's this. Take Tarpley. I'm going to get him on sometime because I had him on last hour, and I like Tarpley a lot. He's a funny guy, smart guy. But, you know, he comes here, and he's like, I like Diet Coke. I like McDonald's. I like GMO. It's no problem. What are you going to do, Alex? Oh, vaccines are good. Get your flu shot. And I'm like, you know all about eugenics and all of this, but it's like some kind of thing of like believing because it's proletariat that it's like somehow good because it's the government and let's all go do something collective. It's some kind of, I mean, they just don't get it. They're missing something in their mind that historically lets them see what's happened. And it's so weird. It's so weird. So I don't hate Democrats or liberals or socialists and people. A lot of them mean well, but they just don't get it. Just like Republicans don't get it. They can make all these excuses about what John Roberts did. That's exactly what I expected. I knew one of those Republicans would defect